Bay Area News Group, I'm Courtney Cronin. He is Raiders beat writer Jimmy Durkin. We're here in Napa after day 8 of training camp. You can really tell that the Raiders need a game. They have the pads on. They've had them on for a couple days now, about 5 days. But from the two fights that we witnessed with the same two guys on Saturday in practice, Mario Edwards and Kelechi Osemele, who had to be put in timeout, the preseason game against Arizona coming up next Friday, it couldn't come soon enough for this group.
Yeah, they always talk about in training camp there hits that point where everybody wants to hit somebody else. It's come quick here. I mean, Thursday was the most physical practice of training camp so far, and we saw a lot of hitting besides a couple of fracases. Today, more scrums. Kelechi Osemele is certainly developing a reputation around here as a guy who's going to mix it up. And yeah, you saw him and Mario Edwards get into it a second time. And at that point, Osemele and Donald Penn both walked off the field. Seemed like maybe Penn was probably getting him to calm down. They came back to the field, and then Donald went and pulled Mario aside and brought him over to the side field and talked to him. Good sign from Donald Penn, kind of showing that leadership there. But eventually, we saw Osemele and Edwards. They came back here into the weight room. Osemele was really getting after it on the exercise bike, and Edwards. This is the concern. Had his hand with ice on it. Mm-hmm. When you're throwing punches and guys are wearing helmet, wearing equipment, bad things can happen, and you hope that's nothing serious because Derek Carr talked about it on Thursday. He likes a little chippiness. He likes him practicing with edge, but doesn't want fighting because for two reasons. It's going to be a penalty, ejection, that kind of stuff if it happens in a game, and guys can get hurt. And, we'll see what Edwards is like if he's able to practice tomorrow.
Luckily, as far as what's happening, actual playing action, the Raiders have remained relatively healthy throughout camp. Guys that came into camp, Carl Joseph had to miss the entire mini camp because he was rehabbing his knee. He says it's still not at 100%. But then some other guys coming back off the PUP list. Nico Autry, defensive lineman, he was back as of Thursday.
Yeah, and usually teams are going to be cautious in camp. So if a guy has any kind of little small nick, he's sitting out practice. And you're used to coming out here and practice. Okay, this guy's not out there, this guy's not out there. And you're just not seeing it so far with the Raiders. Other than Thursday when they had that real heavy hitting session and they went with the preventative mode and sat guys like Carl Joseph and Clive Walford out. I mean, most of the guys are going out there going. There are only two guys today that didn't practice. That's Leon Orr, defensive lineman, and we've kind of seen him out and around. And then Colton Underwood, a tight end, who was starting to do some work on a blocking sled today. So the guys are in good shape, and that's a good sign.
A question Jimmy's been getting a lot on our Raiders Facebook chats, which, by the way, if you haven't liked our Facebook page, be sure to do that. This fan base is very eager to know who's going to be backing up Latavius Murray and who's going to be taking off some pressure from Derek Carr. He was second in the team in rushes in both attempts and yardage during the 2015 season. They came into this year, they came into the draft knowing that has to change. We talked to DeAndre Washington earlier on Saturday. He seems like the guy with Tywan Jones out with some injuries, looking like he's going to become more of the special teams player, kind of taking advantage of of just the circumstances to become the backup.
Yeah, and you also look at Roy Halou. They waived him. On the first day of camp. He was a guy that they signed last year with the hope of being that third down back. And everything they're saying about Washington, they feel like he has every down back capabilities, and so they think he can do a really good job of spelling Latavius Murray. And I mean, Murray had a good year last year, not great maybe, but a very good year. And any maybe issues you had with Murray's season probably were a result of he had 73% of their yards, 72% of their carries. So you want to keep him a little bit more fresh, and DeAndre Washington certainly looks like a guy capable of doing it. He's that small, shifty guy behind a huge offensive line, and that's going to be fun to watch because defenders are going to have a hard time finding him.
The Raiders finished 28th in rushing in 2015, obviously a focal point going into this year. Not a focal point, though, is the quarterback position. So we're not going to talk about Derek Carr, but Connor Cook, who the Raiders picked in the 2016 NFL draft, practicing with the third team. Looks like he's going to become that third-team guy, backing up Matt McGloin, who will then be backing up Derek Carr. What have you seen takeaway-wise? Because there were some questions about leadership and some things coming out of his Michigan State senior year. It seems like that's not the concern, though, right now. He looks like he really does have a pretty good handle of his guys out there.
Yeah, I mean, everybody loves to talk quarterbacks, and Connor Cook, despite the fact that you hope he does not set foot on the field this year, a lot of eyes are on him just because he was a guy that there was so much written about him and talked about him going into the draft, and all the leadership stuff. Even if it was a concern, wasn't a concern here in Oakland, just because we're not
going to play.
we're not bringing him in to be the starter. And I mean, nobody's gonna come out here and tell you he's looked great out here. He hasn't. The throws, they're not quite there. There's balls in the ground. But what I am noticing is as the practices are going on, he's getting better. We're seeing some good throws. He had a nice deep ball today to KJ Brent, for a big gain over Nico Thorpe. So he's starting to kind of make some throws. I talked with Todd Downing, the quarterbacks coach, recently, and he said, stuff like that, accuracy, throwing those balls, we can work with that. We like the decision making that he's showing out here. He's not taking Matt McGloin's backup job. He's not, as some people tried to claim after he was drafted, coming after Derek Carr's job. He's going to be their number 3. Last year they only kept 2 quarterbacks on the active roster. This year I imagine they keep 3 though.
All right, that's going to do it for us on day 8 of training camp here in Napa. Be sure to go over to Facebook and like our Raiders page. As you said, Jimmy, that's his hotspot. He'll be keeping you updated with all of his Facebook live chats and more coming out of training camp in Napa. For Jimmy Durkin, I'm Courtney Cronin. Thanks for watching.